Welcome to Yapping Hour. I'm Denny Prime here with David Mack. You're gonna be my guest today. So David Mack, like Bernie Mac, you related to Bernie Mac?
Not that I know of.
That was you don't look like you would.
Yeah.
That was a stupid question. Let's yap. So guys, here we are. This is my first episode. We're kind of set up in my shop, and as you can see, there's stuff all around. And maybe one day I'll get big enough to have a studio with those fancy, YouTube influencer mics. But right now we got lapel clips, an awesome Audi R8 V10 behind me, which is David's, and my stuff around. So anyway, we're going to be talking about a bunch of different things today. So I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. So anyway, we met at the Charlotte Speed Group.
The real estate group.
Real estate group. Yeah, they do a dinner, which I've been dying to get invited to, and finally got an invite. You did too. And it's not that it's an exclusive club. I just know everyone's like super duper busy, which I appreciate because those guys are all hustling. But we got to talking because we're kind of similar-ish in the sense of like towards the beginning or in the middle of, I should say, maybe not the starting phases of kind of building up our little, like what my wife would call them, like our empire. Probably not the right term because especially for what's out there, right? But so you were mentioning to me you are in the process. Correct me if I'm wrong. Remember, first thing to go when you get old. Is that you're living in a home right now that you're planning on living in for a little longer and then renting and then kind of duplicating that as you go?
Yeah,
am I on the right track? Is that what it was?
The BRRR method.
Yes,
it's kind of a coined term that people use.
Mm-hmm.
So it's where you kind of live there for the year while your mortgage property there, and then pretty much work on it while you live there. Make it as nice as you can for your rental. You don't want to make it too nice, of course, but you want it to be nice enough to be livable.
Yeah.
So did that. You do that for a year. You rent it out, buy the next house, live that for a year. So it's kind of like a long process to do that, especially when you move every year. That kind of sucks.
It does. But my assumption is as you do more, you'll get a system down.
Exactly.
So you'll be like, don't fully unpack that box because we know, 365 days from now or
we have
whatever.
A couple of those boxes.
I'm sure. Yep. I mean, I don't know how much the camera's picking up, but I have boxes from 5 years ago. Yeah. So obviously you'll be living that dream as well. But so that's cool. And that's something we've actually thought about doing as well. Now, would you do, my assumption is you're looking to do long-term rentals. So like you get out and then you want someone who's going to sign like a 1 year, 2 year, whatever.
Exactly.
Are you thinking management company? Are you thinking form your own management company, have another, LLC, or are you thinking we'll just kind of go as we go and just see how it plays out? Like, do you have a plan for that part of it, or is it just roll with it?
Kind of our plan was that you basically want to be able to, the first 10 or so houses, most of the time from my research has shown that you could manage it yourself, and it's doable.
Okay.
But some things, like, it depends on how busy you are.
True.
Because if you have a day job, you have multiple businesses, things going on, that might you might want to have a management company. But my wife and I, we're kind of like do-it-yourselfers as much as we can.
Okay.
To, within reason, of course, some things it's better to pay someone to do it. Saves you time.
100%.
So those types of things we try to keep as much as we can, do it ourselves until you get to that point where you realize you need more of your time back. So at this point, we're 2 houses, so we're going to be picking up the third one this year.
Okay, very cool.
Hopefully.
Very
cool. And we've been doing a lot of blood, sweat, and tears on the weekends and after work, and just really trying to get the house rental ready.
Okay.
The current primary residence, so
ready to go. Yeah. So one of the points of kind of like a reason I wanted to start the podcast, and this from being in that, like the Charlotte Speed Group and some of the other groups that you're probably in, there's a lot of people who have made it, right? And we kind of go to these meetings to learn from them, right?
Exactly.
But I know the one we were at didn't have a presenter, but I feel like I learned a lot. I don't know how you felt, but we
talked with a lot of like-minded individuals.
Yeah, and we met some good, I made some good connections, and that's what it's all about. So for people who that's kind of what I'm hoping the people who are watching are, because a lot of people, I feel like they see the glitz and glamour on Instagram. They see, the the nice cars, the nice houses, and those people, they busted their asses to get where they are. I know that, that
they did.
A lot of people, and you probably hear this at car shows too. Like, must be nice.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
And that's always always a little joke. It must be. It is nice, but what you didn't see was all the hard work behind the scenes. And so, really the kind of the reason I wanted to start this, one of the reasons was people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, even 50s. Like, it's not too late. I know a lot of these people, especially the younger kids, who like see this like YouTube, on Instagram, whatever, and they go to these car shows and they see these people, and there's not a very old crowd, but it's a seasoned crowd. But there are some young folks in there too, who have done very well for themselves. And they're like, that's what I want. I want the 2 Lamborghinis. I want the huge mansion on Lake Norman or whatever, on the lake or whatever the case may be. And there's hard work in between.
You don't see all
and
that's
what you're touching on. Like, I gotta move every year. We're doing it ourselves. We're painting, we're nail popping, we're changing floor, whatever you're doing, landscaping. And so one of the things that we've talked about before we turn the camera on, was like, just start it, just do it. But for a lot of people, and I don't know how you felt, I know for us, it's not always that easy. Like, at least I don't.
Depends on your circumstance.
Yeah, I don't find it that easy. And like for us, we use our work income, which sounds like you might do something similar. Our work income is what we're using to start buying the real estate. And then once you get a couple in, it could kind of start helping to pay for the other investments.
Yeah.
But I don't think people were like, oh, I don't have $20,000 to put down on a house. Well, say someone's in their 20s or even in their 30s, go work corporate. Go do the corporate thing. I mean, I did it for 15, 20 years, but do that, get your money, qualify so the bank's all happy with your W-2s and checks out your boxes and then you can kind of open up some other doors.
Best way to qualify is with a W-2 job.
Exactly. Especially the way the market is now. Who knows where it'll be in, a year, 2, 3 years. And so I think people automatically, and I'm guilty of this too. We even talked about this earlier, where it's kind of like, I'll focus on like why I can't do something and it'll prevent me from maybe trying it. And so I think people are like, well, I don't have the 20% down or I don't have the 30% down. So I'm not even going to look at houses. I'm going to wait 10 years. Yeah. Not realizing if you start now, where would you be in 10 years? Where would you be in 5?
10 years in real estate is
huge.
That's huge.
I mean, just look 6 years ago.
Difference from, being a millionaire or not.
100%. Yeah. I mean, look at 2019 to 2025. Are you using the property you're in to finance the next? I know you work like full-time jobs and stuff. Like, are you looking to use that money to roll forward, or like what's your plan? And as much as you're comfortable sharing, as little as comfortable sharing, like what do you see as part of your plan?
Yeah, well, I think just to backtrack just slightly, like you were mentioning about people that just want to start. Well, first-time home buyers incentives, right? Those are really good sometimes.
Yep.
I mean, you could be as little as 3% or even less down payments. Sometimes they even supplement it depending on the stipulations, of course. But like you said, just starting to save up as much as you can to get that first buyer credit in and get your first home, because even if you just buy it and live there for a couple of years, you're building that equity up to then be able to start your real estate.
Right.
So basically, like what our plan was is to use that as equity as a HELOC. And the HELOC is kind of one of those things where I'm sure maybe people do or don't know about them, where they essentially you take out it's like a kind of like a second mortgage, but not really. It's like a loan against your own property. And a lot of times the banks, they will come in and say, hey, we'll just do a quick appraisal, and they'll say, yeah, you can borrow $50,000, for example, against your house. And that in turn, that $50,000, you could use that at any time. You don't owe on it until you borrow from it, which
Correct.
is great.
Yep.
So a lot of times people can do that, and that's what we did from our first home. And that enabled us, that HELOC enabled us to then buy the second home.
Yeah.
Which was now our new primary residence. And you can use some of that money to fix it up if you need to. Definitely don't buy a boat with a HELOC.
No. And I think that's why people go.
Don't buy a fancy car.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's a terrible idea, of course. But you can kind of use that eventually towards buying the house, the down payment, fixing it up a little bit, and then even if you live there for a year or two later, you can then reappraise it again. Yep. And you could do it all over. So every house you buy, do a HELOC, because that will help enable you to get that discount or rate out of it.
Yeah. So by doing it that way, and that's what we've been talking about doing. So we have a HELOC loan. Let me rephrase it. We have the line of credit. We haven't taken out again, so we've had it for a couple of years.
Yeah, you can just start it and not take. You don't owe on it until you pull.
Yeah, I think you have to take. There's a certain time frame you have to borrow against, or they'll shut it down. But I believe they give you like 5 years. Yeah, 3 to 5 years. And don't take this as an investment advice. Like seriously, all the banks have different things, and check on them. But they are out there and they do exist. Yeah. And so the thing we did, and where we're in between, and I think we talked about it at the dinner. So we have our primary residence, which is what we're in right now, and then we have a small. It's like an old, and I think I told you it's an old. Not old, but it was built in like the 60s or 70s. So like my age.
Right.
No, right. A little younger.
You're pretty old.
A little younger. Yeah, I'm almost as old as the house. Actually, I think it was built in 73, so it's only got me by a few years. But it's like an old commercial residential ranch that was originally like a podiatrist's office, and we bought it from him. He was retiring, fixed it up, and my wife runs her practice out of there. So what we did is we created an LLC that purchased the building.
Okay.
Her practice is its own LLC, and she pays rent to the building. We're paying ourselves.
Yeah,
we're paying ourselves, and we got our own deductions, right?
Yeah.
That's a rent deduction. Now, of course, we have to show the income on the one side, but it's offset by the rent deductions on the other side, so it nets basically zero. But it's like so she pays $2,000 a month again, just for example. And then you show the deduction here and you show the revenue on the building side. It's a wash of zero.
Exactly.
Now, you and I all know, and hopefully some people know, it's not always dollar for dollar when you do deductions and revenue, but you're not going to be very far off. Plus, we have depreciation.
Helps have a good CPA.
Well, that too.
Sure.
Yeah.
Especially with real estate, there's so many ins and outs and different details.
Yeah.
You really want to find a good CPA
to
be with the taxes because that makes a huge difference.
100%.
So
you don't want to do that free TurboTax filing.
I mean, that'll get you by
at the beginning.
The very beginning.
Yeah.
But you especially if you start out running with a CPA, that will just really help you start out on the right foot.
100%. You build up with them almost.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So we have that. So we could technically we could take out a home equity on that.
There you go.
The home equity we have here, what I was saying before is, so we did it, I want to say we did it in 2022. So it was still a good appraisal, but even since then, values have come up.
Yeah.
But we're at a decent rate still because it was kind of before the rates went a little crazy. So we're in that, we're like, do we refinance to get ourselves the higher appraisal, but then the rate's a little higher? Or do we keep the rate where it is and just work with what we got? Because we didn't get a ton. It was a little bit of a conservative appraisal, even by I think it might have been a credit union, HOA. So that's, and then I'm an HOA. No HOAs here. Yeah. Avoid those if you can.
Yeah.
Now we're kind of like, what's our next step? And with our oldest, she's 18. She's going to App in the fall. We're looking in that Boone area for, like, can we buy a duplex and she can live on one side and then we can rent the other side, and then when she's done, it's just a straight rental.
That's the way to do it.
Or do we buy like maybe a house where she rents a room and then she can have a couple of roommates? You might have to do a little bit of configuring, and you rent out the rooms. Her and I have had all these discussions. I'm more leaning towards trying to get more of like condo type units, because I think with the house with the bedrooms, it's just okay. You have to have a contract for each bedroom if they don't get along. And what are you going to get for a bedroom? Yeah, it's shared space, and you rent $200 for a bedroom.
If roommates don't get along. It can get, if having their own space is kind of
100%, especially at that age. It's like But I also feel like you get a house like that, or I think in a parties. Whereas if you get like where there's smaller units, I think they're just more just living there, studying there, that type of thing. So we're back and forth, and obviously it also depends what the market has to bear. I mean, what's available, what's a good deal, and that's one of the things we talk about too. It's like, even with like when we're like, well, the higher rate. Do we want the higher rate, or do we want the better appraisal?
Depends on how much you need, though.
And that's the thing. Like, if you're just doing 20% down, it's not going to be a ton.
Yeah.
Especially because we're not going to buy anything super expensive. Like, we're not buying $800,000 rental. We're probably looking 2 to 3, maybe 350 on a good day. So you want to avoid PMI. So you're looking 40 to 65 on the high end.
Yeah.
We'll have options, which is nice. But yeah, it's just a matter of just doing it. And it sounds like similar paths, but slightly different strategies to get there. And I like that. I'm glad we talked about that too. Like, for people watching, there's no right answer, right? I mean, there could be maybe missteps and mistakes along the way, and it happens. But a lot of the times, it's fixable.
Yes.
You know, like if you do a remodel and you're like, maybe we shouldn't have done that there. You just do it different next time, or you undo something.
On the first house, you learn so much by even if you don't do it yourself. Let's say you pay contractors, you learn so much from those contractors just by seeing how they do it. And also, it doesn't hurt to get 3 or 4 estimates for each thing that you do. And general contractors are tough because they'll come in and give you a big number.
Of course.
But if you do a contractor for each item, like, hey, one that does bathrooms, one that does kitchens, one that does, these different things, I feel like you can get maybe a better feel for those things too.
So you almost act as the general contractor, which saves you some money because that GC's got to mark stuff up to make his
cut too.
Yeah. So if you're doing that and working with the vendors, not only are you learning, but it's your time, and time is money. So at some point you got to find that balance, right?
Yeah. So we did things different on the second house, of course, and then on the second house now, of course, the third house, we would do things different yet again.
Okay.
So every single house, I feel like we're always learning something, which is invaluable. Those skills,
by the time you get to your 10th house, you're going to be like, snap your finger, and you're going to know exactly what's going on. Yeah. So that's great. I mean, that's a great strategy. So I really like that. And people are watching and are thinking about doing this type of stuff. Like, you do have to do a lot, I feel like, at the beginning. If you're, especially when you're investing yourself, because not just your money.
No, it's all of your time.
100%.
So the thing is, when you're first starting out, it's either you're spending the money or you're spending the time.
Right.
Then 9 times out of 10, you're spending your time to do it because you don't have the money to do that sort of thing. So it's a lot of time, it's a lot of hard work, but like you said, if you just start, there's no wrong way to start. As long as you start, you will learn from your mistakes right away, and you'll know just from experience.
Yep. And I feel like, and you just touched on it just a minute or two ago, I feel like that is almost worth the blood, sweat, and tears of putting into it, is because if you just hire someone to do it, it's going to get done. It'll get done the way you want. But if you're doing it, you're learning. So much more.
You'd be surprised, though, even if you hire someone to do it, you almost
you're still getting involved
to make sure things are right. Because at the end of the job, they might have done it how they thought that you wanted it, but there might have been something that they overlooked that you didn't think about at that time. And a lot of times you want to be there right with them to really see, and get their ideas and say, hey, what do you think? You're the expert here. Do you think we should do it this way? Or do you think we should do it this way? And that then helps you maybe learn in turn too.
Yeah. That's to have that experience under your belt while building your empire, right? But also, you're working your jobs right now, at least, so it's kind of fund everything and gaining that experience. You're a triple threat at that point, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think people lose sight of that because they see the end game and they don't realize A, what it takes to get there, and B, by what you'll put in to get there, that end game is probably going to be better than you think.
Yes.
It might not look like it when you're first starting, but because of what you're learning behind, the work you're putting in, you're going to be like, and the other opportunities are going to open themselves.
I actually saw this really good quote that said, the 10 years from now, the version of yourself, you would never believe how far you would have gotten in that amount of time.
Yep.
And then looking back, you don't realize like the path that you take to get there. It kind of makes like a huge difference on that sort of thing. So I always think about that. Like 10 years from now, what would I look back on and see, and it just makes sense to do that.
100%. Sometimes it's hard
going forward.
Sometimes it's hard to look out, like when you're in the middle of doing something or you make a mistake and you're kind of like, what are we doing here? But then sometimes it's like, we're doing the right thing here. But it's just like we said at the very beginning, like, just do it. Like, not to copy Nike or anything. I mean, but it's totally irrelevant. Like, just get in and just do it. So, so I mean, it sounds like you're on the right path. And have you capped yourself at a number? Like, I know you said 10 houses. Like, is that just a goal where you're just like, hey, let's get to 10, and then when you get to 10, it's like, let's get to 20? Like, do you have a vision beyond that, or you're kind of just like, let's see where this takes us as we go? Or is this the first time you thought about it?
I think there's a limit on how many houses you can have in your name until they require you to be like a professional, or there's some stipulation.
Okay.
I think per person. but then you can you do it as a business or something.
Like LLC it, and the
I think
LLC
you're
would manage them
required
or something.
to do
Okay,
that.
I haven't looked into that part of it.
There's a limit, but
Okay.
for myself, I don't think I'm really setting a goal. I think it's just like 10 houses just seems even unattainable for me. But then when you get to that goal, maybe then you reevaluate. So it's just one of those things where just keep pushing until you feel like you've reached that point where you can kind of do more, free up your time, basically.
Right.
So
right.
Mostly, a lot of people think it's to get the money and the cars and the houses and all these things, but for me, it's just to free up my time and not have to like daily grind all the time. Just kind of free up some of your time. You can still work hard, but you get some of your time back, and that's
100%.
important for me. So,
and I think it's funny. I was going to mention that. I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah.
A lot of people overlook that aspect, especially I think younger people, and I don't want to like blanket because they don't all have the same mindset,
right.
but in their maybe upper teens, 20s, and maybe even into low 30s, give or take, they see the nice cars, they see, out on a boat or owning a lake house or all these things, and they're like, I want that, I want that, I want that. But as I've gotten older, and it sounds like you might have even realized it before I did when I was, your age, I was still grinding for the money, and now it's like this. Like people don't know, right now they don't know. It's Monday morning.
Yeah.
I don't know what time it is. It's you have your watch. It's probably like 10 something, right?
Yeah.
And we're just shooting the breeze here, talking and doing a podcast, which is a complete luxury thing to do, right?
Yeah.
So there's no money tied into this at the moment. Hopefully one day will be huge, right? Sponsors. but I mean, really, I'm doing it for fun. I'm doing it to help myself work on some of my weak points, and that I want to work on, fixing. Not fixing my flaws, but kind of working on things that will help me be more successful in the future.
Yeah.
And it's Monday morning.
And networking too.
And networking
is awesome because before the video, we actually found we had more mutual friends than we even realized. And through cars and through different things like that.
Yeah.
And your coffee business. And there's just a lot of things that you don't really realize until you network with people. Then you get that feel for, you realize that everyone's kind of connected in some way. So.
And I always say, my wife always jokes too, Charlotte is a very little big town.
It is.
It's not a huge city. It's not a small city. It was maybe 20 years ago. But it's a decent sized city, and it's spread out. But it is not. It is a little town.
I think by land area, it's like one of the bigger cities by land.
Yeah.
But then the city itself obviously is huge, but it's not like compared to like Atlanta or something.
Right, or like LA or New York. Yeah. But it's like,
huge, but it feels like a big city, but it feels like a small town.
100%. I mean, like with the coffee. So then what we were talking about, we'll let you in on this, was the boosted coffee is my main business. And if you guys follow me on the Real Danny Prime, you might have seen that because sometimes I cross post. But we were just talking. I have the trailer for sale because I'm looking to do physical locations, and I was like, oh, kind of like a drive through concept similar to Clutch Coffee. Don't worry, Clutch, it's gonna be a different area. And then we come to find out that one of the owners of Clutch Coffee, who owned an Audi R8, this one, and it's just like, and I did a rally with, his name was John, when he owned that car. It's a very big small world. It is. And when you get into, so I used to have a racing company, which was focused on go-karts.
Okay.
And
all your go-kart tires.
Yeah, you can see I got stuff around. I haven't finished selling all my inventory, but I sold the business in 2021 to start the coffee business, which I started in 2022. And that the car, like these type of cars, when I say like events and meets, and the racing, like so much overlapping, like because there was kids who I would work with, and then sometimes their parents would just drop them off and I'd work with them, but then for races they'd be there and I would look at them and go, I know you. And like there was one guy I was like, you had like a silver Supra, didn't you? Like, and I know people on cars for a while. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just like, you had a silver Supra, didn't you? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, oh my God, I may. And just the connections you make. And it's interesting seeing it also in the investment side. It's just really interesting. And a lot of them from the ones I've met, so I don't want to say all of them, I don't want to blanket them, but a lot of them are, at least now, self-made in the sense of they may have, I think they've all at one point, a lot of them anyway, did the corporate thing, which I think
to kind of supplement their
and if you're watching this and you're on the younger end, like I know a lot of the people on the younger side, me included, when I was young, I want to own my business, I want to do this, I want to do this, and it's, you need that foundation. And really, unless you're born into a family business, the best way to get that foundation is, and I'm not saying you need to do, 4, 6, 8 years of college or whatever. You do what you got to do for you, but you got to work that corporate. You got to put that money away.
Or
you
even
gotta,
trade schools too, or just trades in general, because you can make $100 an hour welding.
A lot of money.
Something simple as that.
And you get a skill that you can maybe turn into investing.
Skills are more important than anything.
I agree.
The more skills you can acquire, people will see that you have that value.
100%.
Yeah, and it's like, even with just like you said, cars in general and things like this car, it's like this was like a 10-year goal of mine to always have something like, exotic or super car like that. And it's, people think, oh, like, yeah, you have its car, like you just bought it just day one. Well, no, it took me 10 years of saving to be able to even afford it. And so it's something where, like you said, people just see the end versus the beginning. But if you just keep at it, it's one of those things where trade schools, like you said, maybe college might not be for everyone, but as long as you can just get something foundation.
100%. And I think that's what's lost on a lot of people is you need that foundation. Like I said, and you even touch on it, like, unless you're kind of born into it, or, you need that foundation to be able to build. But even if you're born into it, I mean, we know people who are, in the group, even who have, some of them have family business and stuff, but it wasn't handed to them. Exactly. It was a foundation for them. And then they busted their ass to turn it into what it is today. Like, there's no guarantees either way. Nothing's handed to you, And I hate to sound like cliche, like get off my lawn, but like nothing's handed to you in life, but it's true. And like when you're younger, like, you look at people, you're like, oh, whatever. But it's like, now that I'm older, I'm like, it's really not. Like, this was not handed to you.
No.
This was you working. I know you had a business. We'll talk about that too. But like, probably working full time, doing a business on the side, grinding to get your real estate, dream off the thing. And you also, I think you said you guys both have your real estate license, right? Yes. Your wife and yourself.
Yeah. So that's with our W-2 job.
Okay. Yeah.
And that helps that our W-2 job requires a real estate license, which then in turn enables us to buy and sell real estate in North Carolina. It's the same license. So
exactly.
It works out.
So you're doing that. You're hustling. You're saving. Like it's people see this at this car shows and they're like, oh, must be nice. It's like, it's nice, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's a lot of freaking work, and, same with my wife. She has a practice. She's a counselor. She worked in schools as a school counselor. Yeah. And then she started her own practice like part-time because it's kind of like, I have a monthly payment. I have expenses. I have children. I need this salary coming in, and then it was start the business on the side, part-time, 10, 20 hours a week, which as a counselor is a lot. And then it slowly built from there. And then after a year of doing that, she's like, I can't work at the schools anymore. You get your health care. And then by the time you have a decent foundation for the business, she left the school system, went into her business. And then her business has like, since that year, probably quadrupled in like 2 or 3 years. Yeah. So, but people look at it, she goes, we go on trips sometimes and, we have the businesses and stuff. So, oh, must be nice. But like, yeah, but you didn't see when she was stressing, or even when I was stressing, but I started the go-kart business. Yeah, I was working at Ernst & Young, EY, started the go-kart company. And then it's like, do I leave? I'm working at a Big Four accounting firm, 401k match, health insurance, expense card,
you have those benefits,
salary, it's like, and to start a go-kart racing company, which is a very niche business. Now in this area, as you know, we're in Charlotte area, like it's big here.
Big here, yeah.
But that does no guarantee.
Sounds like a crazy person saying someone
like you want to leave a Big Four firm and start a go-kart racing company?
You sound a little crazy, guy.
You do, right? Like I know you race those for fun, like but like you want to do what now?
Seems like more of a hobby than
100%. And the thing is, and I think that's a very important point too. Yeah. I also think if you're like, for me, it was a hobby. So a need where people would go and do what I did. They go to Victory Lane Karting, or at this point, Trackhouse had been open. They would do the rental karts there and do a rental kart league, and then want to go racing. And they'd come into the racing and they'd spend 10 grand, buy all this high-end equipment to finish 17th out of 30, or maybe 30th out of 30. And so I found a need. I was like, we need someone who can get these people into racing the right way. And so I talked to both tracks and I said, you guys don't have the time to handhold clients. I understand. That's not where your revenue is, right? Your revenue is these rental carts and the races. I'm going to do that. will you funnel business through me?
Okay.
Because eventually they will be your client. My business model was to lose clients. My business model was to take someone, work with them for 4 to 6 months, and then go off and then bring in the next one. Because I didn't want to be a racing team.
Them to start out.
So it was a 100% a hobby.
Wow.
Found the need, turned it into a business. But it was successful, not because I was chasing the money, but because I was just having a blast out there.
You had a
I was just having so much fun. And I ran that business for 4 solid years and sold it for a good chunk, which, then I put towards the coffee. But it's like, and it's but it's just that just starting, right? You have your foundation. I worked a corporate job, like you have your W-2 job. And then you use that as your foundation to like, where do I want to be in 10 years and how do I get there? And, am I going to make mistakes? Like, yeah. I mean, there's so many opportunities out there for people. And, I hate to keep bringing it up, but I think the younger people just get stuck on the end game, the cars, the houses, and they don't realize you don't have to do. I know we're focusing a lot on real estate because we're both on a similar mindset with that, but it doesn't have to be that. I have a go-karting. I had a go-karting business. I have a coffee business. You do or do vinyl, like wraps. And I've seen, like, we're connected on social media. Also, like, I've seen some decals. My assumption is that maybe you're selling them. I'm not sure. Are you printing and selling?
So like, I guess a quick backstory is I had a regular day job, like right out of college. Decided, this is working here for a while. It's just a corporate thing. It's just not what I want to do. The pay was great, the benefits were great, exactly like you said, but it's just not really. I wasn't fulfilled. I wasn't enjoying it. So I was like, me and my buddies, we were in the cars, of course, and we're like, let's do some vehicle wraps or customizing of vehicles. And so started doing it out of my garage at my house. It was actually a funny story. And I had it, of course, in an HOA.
Yeah.
So
the HOAs.
After a couple months, I get this letter from the HOA. It says, like, we've noticed you have all these vehicles in and out, and like you're not allowed to conduct businesses out of your home and this and that. And so at that moment, you either decide, hey, am I going to continue to pursue this, or am I going to just quit and do something else? And me and a friend decided, hey, why don't we just go rent out a shop, storage unit, and just turn it into something, and let's just see where it takes us. Sure enough, we rented out this storage unit, and then started doing the vehicle stuff at the unit. Worked out great. We turned it into a shop, had all the equipment, tire machine, a 2-post lift, all the things that you need to do mechanical stuff with tires, and then vehicle wraps, of course, and then taking it from there after running our own business we did that for 7 years.
Oh wow, okay.
So I have all the equipment, like the vinyl cutting machines and different stuff like that. So when we decided to move to Charlotte, just sold the business and took some of the equipment with me. Of course. So so I still have the vehicle, the vinyl cutting equipment to do decals, custom, a heat press for shirts and things like that. But and then of course with Charlotte, do that, and then decided to start doing real estate.
So where'd you come from?
So we were up north, in northern part of West Virginia, kind of near Pittsburgh. And was dealing with the snow out of 3 to 4 months out of the year. It's just not. I'm originally from Florida, so I love the warm weather, and Charlotte was kind of like a happy median in between. They always
halfway.
They always say you made it halfway,
half back.
And one tank of gas will get you there. It's like a running joke.
And that's funny.
So made it here. Decided to do that, and of course, there's some amazing wrap shops here.
Yes, there's a lot around here.
But the problem is it's saturated. There's a lot that I was like, I can't do the same thing there. It's just there's too many, and there's people that are really great at what they do. So that's kind of something that started out doing that. Instead.
Because you're. I don't remember. What's your Instagram handle again? It's the shop, right?
304 Dips.
Is the 304 like, is that the area code where you were from?
Yep. Is that 304 is West Virginia. It's actually the whole area code for West Virginia.
Oh, okay.
And,
so that's really cool because and that's another thing, like what we talked about, or like when I started the kart racing, is doing it while you're still doing other stuff. Like there's no there. This is not the path to success. It is never a straight line. I don't even care if you're in one business exclusively. Mm-hmm. You're not getting here like this. It's going to be wavy. Now, if you do, like how you and I are, like I also have an RC car company that I own, and I just do e-commerce. I don't have a location, but I'd love to find a place that like has some relevance where I can just buy a glass case on Facebook Marketplace for like $200, put a couple in there, advertise the website, have a few hours there where I can be like, hey, if you want to come by, I'll be here from 12 to 2 next Wednesday or whatever. So I've got my foot in everything, kind of like sounds like how you do too. And but again, it's like that path to success is like,
you just got to keep trying things until something sticks. And it's not necessarily something that you might be interested in, and maybe even not a hobby, but something that you're actually really good at.
Right.
That's the key difference. Is a lot of people think that, I want to just do something that I enjoy and I never have to work a day in my life. Well,
good luck.
you also want to enjoy it, but also you mostly want to do something that you're actually good at, that you have a skill in, or you can learn to be good at that skill.
100%.
And that's going to make more, I feel like more in the long run than it would be than something you just enjoy as a hobby. Well, if you enjoy it, you might not be really great at it. Like, I can race RC cars, but I might not be that good at it, but if you have really good skill and you're something that you're good at, I feel like that's the way to do a business.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. It's like they always say, if you do something you love, you never work a day in your life. But they always say that for like a job. But it's 100% relevant for starting your own business or whatever you want to do. Like 100% the same as that. But one thing I did was curious about. We talked about it way earlier. As you're building, have you thought about doing something like, how you said there's kind of limits on the thing, doing something like starting like an LLC to manage it and then put someone in place, or just hire an outside one to do it? I mean, depending on what makes the most sense.
Another thing is with our CPA basically was mentioning like, hey, having an LLC is an advantage. You can write things off and do these sorts of things with business advantages, of course. But you don't necessarily have to put your properties in the LLC name.
Okay.
So that's the key difference, is putting the property, of course, this is not 100% advice to anyone.
Right.
Putting a property in an LLC name, there are more hoops you have to jump through, because the mortgage company will then in turn say, hey, I see now this is a rental. It's not your primary residence anymore.
Yes, they don't like that.
You want it to be to get the lowest down payment. Of course, it's your new primary residence. You can do 3%, and then you have a house for $40,000, which is crazy, because if you put 20% down on something, you can't expect someone first starting out to have $100,000 in their pocket just to put that as a down payment. So it's one of those things where having that initial start is really where it's a good place to start.
Okay. And then like you said, so there are benefits to creating the LLC around it and not necessarily putting it through the LLC because of the restrictions they put on you.
You can, but there's stipulations that they'll require you to go through. In that name. And some people want to have it like, I'm sheltered from lawsuits in an LLC. Well, not necessarily, because any good lawyer can pierce the veil of an LLC without too much trouble.
Right.
So it's more about keeping good records, keeping things separate. You have your LLC credit card, you have your personal credit card. You keep the things separate. You keep track of everything, just keep really good books. And having an LLC is an advantage for tax purposes, but not you might not necessarily want to put it in the name of the house.
Yeah.
That might be something that people look into. So.
I mean, there's certain protections, but like you said, there's no guarantee.
No guarantee
protections.
Yeah, no guarantee.
I mean,
because when you do your taxes, your LLC, it still all flows through you.
Goes right up to your Schedule C.
Number. It's all your social security number. There's no like, I'm running it through this business LLC. No, it's still the same, and a lot of people may or may not know that.
Yeah.
And that makes a difference.
Well, it's funny. Like I thought I knew this stuff, and then when I started doing my LLC taxes, like it just rolls through your Schedule C, and so the building that we bought, we did that's a partnership.
Okay.
So that we have to file a K-1, and we have to that's by March 15th. But then everything else, so her practice is a PLLC just because of the nature of the business,
right?
And then the coffee and the RC are regular LLCs, and they'll just roll through me.
Perfect.
Yeah. So we have a messy tax return. So like you said earlier, get a good accountant from the jump. There's a lot of deductions with like I know with the building, and I'm sure it's with houses. Maybe you can tell me because I don't know. We get depreciation deductions as well because the building as an asset will then depreciate, which is not something you would get if you just did it as yourself.
Exactly.
Now there might be some allowances because I think there's allowances for a second property or investment type property. Yes. Like I think there are some allowances, but I feel like there's more allowed under it being an LLC.
Exactly.
So like you said, there's those pros and cons, and you have to weigh your options.
Having it through, like you said, doing those deductions and making sure you can depreciate things, and your CPA will say, hey, you can depreciate this, you can depreciate that. So when you first do it though, like let's say you buy your primary residence, you're living there for the whole year working on it. Well, let's say it goes into the following year and you don't rent it out to that following year. Well, all those things that you bought to fix up the house, you have to then depreciate them necessarily. You can't just say, oh, well, this is a rental write-off that year. So, I mean, you still get it over tax.
Yeah.
But you still get the tax advantages, even if you do it the following year. But from what I've learned this year, actually, that he was saying that you essentially have to now wait the 27 and a half years or whatever the depreciation schedule is.
Oh, right. You go on that schedule.
Like if you buy a fence or buy a landscaping and all these things, now you have to wait those whole time to depreciate it versus taking it that year.
Yeah. You don't get $5,000 for the fence. You're taking that over 27 years.
Yeah. So, which is not a huge deal.
No.
But it does save you just that year, of course, if you're able to rent it out that same year that you do all the fix ups. So but a lot of times in the real world, that never works out.
No,
it doesn't seem like things happen, your schedule gets behind or whatever the case may be. But as long as you just keep pushing forward, that's you're still going to get it in the long term.
Yeah. And so that kind of leads me to a question I had for you, because I was curious about this just from my personal knowledge, and you'll learn too, is are you signing individual leases with each person, and are you drafting up leases, or do you have like an attorney doing it? Like, how do you manage the rental agreements?
So there's a lot of new developments in leasing and management stuff now. And top secret trick for the viewers out there is now Zillow does their own rental management section of their website.
I did not know that.
And it's completely free for the landlord, which is really mind-blowing to me how that service works, because they're providing all of these services for a landlord, but then they're not requiring you to pay anything. And the only thing I can think that the advantage that they get from that is they get more leads from that. And then not only that, every landlord is getting their house on their website. So then that Zillow is seeing more leads from that. So I think it's just more of a back end thing for Zillow. And I'm not promoting Zillow by any means.
No, that's an interesting model.
That works for me. So what works for me might be different than what works for someone else.
100%.
But so I've found this rental management site and through Zillow, and you go in there, you enter all your information, you do your thing, and it's really neat. It keeps track of all the rent payments. It keeps track of it reminds the tenants each time. But it does say they can draft a lease for you, which it's generic. It may not be specific for North Carolina. It may just be a U.S. thing. I don't know. And it says in there, like, hey, if we provide this lease for you, it's very generic. And it says, or you can upload your own lease from an attorney, or you can provide a lease through your local realtors association. Being that I have a real estate license, the access to the realtors association is an additional fee every year, of course. They charge like $2,500 a year. It's not cheap.
No,
but that helped me find houses. It provided me access into houses. I can go and look at my own houses on my own schedule. I don't have to call a realtor and say, hey, I need to be in this house tomorrow to take a look at the inside. Also, it provides me the peace of mind where I can receive my own income check. The commission check.
Yep.
So that works out. So if you buy a house and it's like, hey, it's kind of like you're getting a discount. So provided through that. So Realtors Association provides leases standard leases that are bar certified.
Okay.
And so I just end up using those, and then I fill it out with the tenant's name and information. Zillow actually even lets you screen tenants, which is pretty neat because then the tenant pays for that fee for the background check.
Okay.
They pay for all it's not a lot. I think it's $35, and they have unlimited for a year.
Oh, okay.
So that tenant can sign up for as many houses as they want to get certified. And then, of course, you as the landlord, you have to, well, if you're doing it yourself, you have to weed through all the information. You have to make sure their stuff matches up, because we actually received several people that were clearly trying to scam us. You could tell because they forged their paychecks. They would have like a monthly number, and then at the end of the year they didn't even add it up right, so the number was different. And then you would ask them, hey, can I contact your place of employment? And they would be like, oh yeah, they're not available, or they would come up with any excuse.
So you're not call, right?
So you as a landlord using this Zillow property management website, you have to be very careful, because if you don't do your own background, you have to check everything.
You have to do a background check on the background check. Almost.
And you even want to use other websites and check references. You always check references, call and email, everything. Just check everything you can. So do through that, and that's helped us a ton.
That's awesome.
It is.
I didn't know that was a thing. That's awesome.
It is so helpful, because otherwise you're doing it on your own. There's really no structure to it without having that. To me, that's valuable.
100%.
So that's helped us out a ton to do that, and just going through any of those. I'm sure there's other services like that.
Yeah, but there's a good one to know.
I just know that one's free. It works for me. Your mileage may vary.
Well, I mean, you know the name Zillow, so it gives you a little warm and cozy feeling at night, right? Like, I know Zillow.
And the tenants also, they appreciate that too, because
I know Zillow.
It's very trustworthy, and just kind of go from there.
That's cool.
That's what we found that works best for us with the leases.
That's good to know. I'm actually going to do some digging.
But if you know a local realtor, make sure you get a bar certified lease from them.
Right.
They can just send you the file, or whatever the case may be. If you have a family friend.
I mean, I know a guy.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so that's the other thing, being that you have to pay every month. So it's quarterly. It's for Realtor Association.
Okay.
Well, during that year we're living in the house, we don't have that activated.
Okay.
Because there would be no point for us to pay for a service that we're not getting use out of.
That makes sense.
We don't get to look at houses while we're fixing up the house we're living in.
Yeah, because
that's the only problem is.
Yeah.
And then if you let it lapse for more than so many months, then they charge you an additional fee to re-sign up. So at the end of the year, when we start to look for houses again to buy a new house, we'll have to pay.
You have to do all that to re-up and everything. I got you.
So it's.
I mean, there's real estates.
It may work or not work for some people. Some people may want to never deactivate it if you just want to be in the market and always. Maybe you can sell a house to a friend while you're doing it, or something, or buy a house for a friend,
right,
or anything. Like, you could do that in the time being. If you sell one house, buy one house, whatever the case may be, you may make your money back in that whole time period in one house for the whole year.
Right.
So that might be something that's
true.
Would work out.
Well, like we said, how many times have we said it? There's no one way to do it, right? So it's a lot of options. So I think you've probably heard us yap enough. We've been going for probably, I don't know what the edit's going to bring this down to, but it's probably going to be a good hour. So thanks, Daniel, for coming on, bringing your awesome car. I'm an Audi fan. We have a TTRS, and I love the R8s. So what we're going to kind of do, this is the first episode, but what I'm trying to do is when guests come on, having them bring a quote or something that they can want to say, like as an outro. My understanding is you did bring one?
Yeah.
So let's hear it.
I have this, I watch a lot of podcasts and different things on YouTube, and this guy I follow, Alex Hormozy, he has this quote that he said about starting businesses and hard work. And he said, fear is something that is a mile wide, but it's only an inch deep. And that's something where you could look out to the horizon and see it looks like it's this forever away distance, but you step in and you don't sink, and you realize that it's not as scary as you thought it would be. So that's something I hope people take away from just starting to do so.
And I think that's really on brand with a lot of what we talked about. So that was perfect. So take that to heart, hopefully you guys learned something here, and I appreciate you guys watching. We'll see you in the next episode.